Just a quick disclaimer before we hop right into it. This is part 2 of a 2-part series. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll leave a link in the description to it. Let's talk about raids first. The Alliance raids in this game are pretty cool. Coming from WoW, I thought these were the main raids since it was more in line with the player count and boss count that I expect from raids. I like how a lot of the fights and even sometimes the layout of the raids forces the big group to split into each of the Alliance groups. It's interesting seeing 3 groups all handle a task at the same time, knowing if one messes it up, the whole raid wipes. The story for some of them are cool as well. I really like how the Shadowbringers Alliance raids are crossovers with the Nier franchise of games. I don't really know anything about those games and have never played them, but it's still super cool seeing a crossover event between 2 completely different franchises and how they connected the 2 for the story chain. The gear set is also really nice as well. As a new player that doesn't have a ton of gear or fashion options, it's nice when the game makes it easy to get some nice ones like the ones that Totaro gives you and the 2B set. When I was going through the process of unlocking the Bastion Southern Front and had to run the Stormblood Alliance raids, I got to the last one, and on the Thunder God fight, the second healer in my group DC'd as we pulled. And I had no idea how to do the fight, and since it spreads you out so far, I had to heal it completely by myself, and I'll be perfectly honest, so far, that's probably my proudest moment with this game. It was pretty stressful trying to heal an entire raid fight that I didn't know the mechanics to by myself, but I managed to do it without a problem, and I was very happy with myself. My group hyped me up after it was done too, which felt nice. I wasn't recording at the time, so unfortunately I don't have gameplay of that run, since it was a while ago, but it was exciting. One thing I noticed about the Alliance raids that I thought was interesting is how the final boss of each one would have a combination of the mechanics from previous bosses. It's kinda like, oh, you can beat them one at a time, well now try beating them all at once. But yeah, the Alliance raids are fun, and I do really enjoy running the Nier raids each week for the coins. Now, let's talk about the normal raids. I was very confused for a while about why they only had one boss, and how they were really any different from the Trials. I still don't fully understand why they only have one boss, but I do believe the main difference between them and Trials is that Trials tend to be story-focused, whereas raids are side stories. Is there a reason why they only have one boss? I'm fine with it, because I totally understand having one high-quality 10 to 15 minute fight, rather than a bunch of bad 5-minute fights, but it just feels weird. It doesn't quite feel like a raid. Like, I don't really feel like I'm raiding anything. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm on this platform now, time to fight this thing in front of me. It doesn't give off the vibe the word raid does to me. That being said, it's probably just something that I'm not used to, that I'll get more familiar and attuned to over time, as I get more comfortable and experienced playing the game, and it's probably just a different perspective of the definition of the word raid that I'm just not used to. The only normal raids I've done so far are the Shadowbringers raids. I wasn't too concerned with doing a ton of side quests for the older expansions while I was leveling. I was mainly focused on experiencing the main story and playing around with the classes that interested me. I do plan on unlocking the Heavensward and Stormblood normal raids soon, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. I don't have a ton to say about the normal raids since I don't really have anything to compare them to, but I did enjoy the Shadowbringers raids and look forward to maybe doing some Savage before Endwalker comes out. Some of the trials are a ton of fun. Some of the older ones are great, but since Shadowbringers is the most current expansion, I'm going to focus on how I feel about those for this. I absolutely love the Dancing Plague because that phase change from the room inside the castle to the grassy platform is just so pretty and so smooth. It's also got a good difficulty in my opinion. It's not hard, but there is room for error, and for the first trial of the expansion, I think it does a great job at what it's trying to accomplish, and eases you into the new expansion's content. There wasn't a single trial in Shadowbringers that I felt was annoying or bad. Each one felt pretty okay in terms of difficulty and design, and had some level of interest in its aesthetic. I've spent more time inside the Cloud Deck than any other trial since it's the most current. Actually, as of writing this script, I just had my first attempt doing an extreme trial that's current, with attempting Diamond Weapon Extreme with my FC last night. We got it super low, but it was the first time a few people in the group, myself included, had really tried, and it was really late, so we didn't end up dropping him, but we got it to like 4 or 5% once or twice. I remember someone telling me at least, that it was on the easier side in terms of extreme trials. Just like most high-end MMO content, it didn't seem overly difficult, just something that would take lots of practice to be able to really understand and recognize the visual cues of each mechanic and get comfortable doing them. For some reason, the numbers completely messed me up so many times. I went full smooth brain and just couldn't comprehend that 5 equals 1, 6 equals 2, 7 equals 3, and 8 equals 4. Towards the end, I started to finally understand it, and I look forward to downing it, hopefully soon, sometime this upcoming week. All in all, though, I've enjoyed the trials a lot. While I've only attempted one extreme trial, I really enjoyed my time with it last night. It was challenging, but not unfair, and each mechanic seemed well thought out and reasonable. Assuming most extreme trials are like that, I'm very excited to do more of these moving forward, and the trials have honestly probably been one of my favorite parts of the game as a whole. Oh god, where to start? As someone who started playing FF14 late into an expansion, it kind of felt like Square Enix was punishing me for being new here. Having to do the Relic Weapon grind for every single patch before the most current to get the current Relic Weapon is a horrible feeling as a new player. One of my goals while playing was to get the best weapon for my class, which is the most current Relic Weapon, but that goal doesn't seem fully achievable or realistic within a reasonable amount of time, because I just have to do the grinds that were made for a weapon that became worthless multiple patches ago. It's also incredibly overwhelming to look up how to get your Relic Weapon and see gigantic articles that mention stuff like doing 60 trials, running the same raid over and over and over and over again, grinding up your rank in the Bosnian Southern Front, having to do entire quest chains, and more. I understand that if you were there from the beginning and it's not that bad or too much of an otherworldly grind to get it, but if you start playing later into an expansion, it doesn't seem like there's anything in place for catching up Relic Weapon-wise. On a positive note, though, I like that you have to craft the Relic Weapons. It's cool that you are actively doing something to be able to forge a crazy strong and useful weapon. I actually really like that a lot. The best weapon you can get is something you get by doing a lot and earning it, rather than just getting a lucky drop from a raid or trial boss, or something like that. Like a legendary from WoW, it's way more substantial and feels more impactful to get it this way. While I don't really like how you have to do all the old Relic Weapon stuff to get a current power level weapon, it's not the biggest deal in the world. I do wish the grind for getting them wasn't so boring and repetitive. I don't think grinding has to be a negative thing, and I also don't think it has to mean being repetitive. I think it can also mean just in having to invest a hefty amount of time to acquire something, which is how the Relic Weapons should be, albeit in a way that was at least a tad bit less repetitive, would be better in my opinion. And I think this concludes a lot of my initial thoughts on FF14. I wanted to touch on at least most of the main content types and systems. I'm sure a lot of you probably noticed I didn't mention PvP at all, and that's because I'm not a huge PvP guy. I've only played one single game of PvP through the Duty Finder, and that's literally it. I might get into a little bit more in the future, but for now, PvE is my preferred bit of content, and I'm going to be focusing on that for a while. There isn't a ton I have to complain about with this game. It's a lot of fun, and I can tell that Square Enix really does care about it. In my next video, I plan on giving some advice to new players like myself, since a lot of veteran players can oftentimes become disconnected from what it really feels like to be a new player to these kinds of games, and that can affect the quality of their advice, I think. The main reason why I wanted to mention that, though, is because the biggest positive of FF14, and the main reason why it's worth playing over WoW, in my opinion, is the community. While I didn't touch on the community in this two-part series, I will definitely be talking about it in my next one, since a lot of the advice I can give you revolves around how positive and inclusive the large majority of FF14's player base actually is. And that'll do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.